Hello, I'm Cristiano, the AstroAnimatorVFX, and I'm here with a new update on the crew flight test mission of the Starliner. I want to clarify that the misinformation that has been spread claiming that the Starliner is incapable of undocking autonomously, that's not accurate. Even in a crew configuration, all undocking is done autonomously. The difference in a crew configuration is that if the computer detects two faults in a sequence, it will wait for a crew response to that critical event. But first, I would like to start this video by reaffirming my support for the teams at Boeing and NASA and emphasize that the press conference always brings a significant amount of information. Everything takes time and we cannot expect immediate news when engineering teams need to analyze and carry out their work. It's important that everyone understands this. Also, I want to highlight that Mark Nappi and Stich have been clear and transparent in all their statements during the conference, many of which have been true lessons about the Starliner. NASA and Boeing have the best engineering teams working on the Starliner program. The Crew Flight Test (CFT) is a mission designed to assess the performance of a spacecraft with a crew on board, focusing on identifying and resolving any issues before the spacecraft is deemed ready for regular use. Unlike an operation mission, which follows established procedures with the expectation of a smooth execution, a CFT is expected to encounter anomalies, and its purpose is to rigorously test the spacecraft in real space conditions. This helps ensure that all possible issues are resolved before moving into routine operational flights. Even before the launch, I mentioned that since this is a test flight, no one should be fixated on the 8-day mission timeline. Depending on what needed to be tested, the mission could be extended. I mentioned this in numerous videos I made before mission's launch. The mission goal is to test whatever is necessary to understand how the spacecraft behaves in the real space environment, mitigating whatever is needed for its certification. I want to emphasize that this is the first crew flight test for this spacecraft. In the history of the human space flight, there has never been a first test flight without some anomalies that needed to be mitigated in the future missions. The Space Shuttle and its first 4 missions were considered crew flight tests, and all of those flights encountered numerous issues that required adjustments. In theory, the first 25 shuttle flights, including the operational ones, provided a significant learning curve for the engineers who adapted procedures and gained better understanding of how the spacecraft behave in the space environment. It's also important to remember that in the case of the Crew Dragon, SpaceX gained extensive knowledge from the test flights of the Cargo Dragon, which began well before the crewed version was developed. Therefore, it's frustrating to see some people criticizing these anomalies because they do not change the fact that the Starliner is one of the most advanced spacecraft in the world today. The Starliner has no black zones, and most of its objectives for this crew flight test have been achieved, except for these anomalies. Overall, this mission has been proceeding very well, with recent tests confirming that the thrusters are in good condition. In the last briefing, Stich confirmed that returning Butch and Sunny aboard the Starliner is still one of the options. However, he also outlined contingency measures in case they need to return on the Dragon, if any readiness review issues remain unresolved. Even so, he reiterated his confidence in the entire team at Boeing, NASA, and SpaceX, emphasizing that having two spacecraft with one serving as a contingency for the other is a significant milestone for NASA. This is unprecedented in NASA's history and highlights the importance of having dual access to space. Remember that he said, "So we have done a lot of contingency work and a lot of contingency planning for a lot of scenarios, but we think now we would have the whole waterfront covered. As I said, we haven't really implemented the planning for this mission for these things, but we have all these items in place to keep all the options in table," Stich said. Boeing released a statement showing a range of tests conducted to assess the health of their RCS Thrusters, which are operating at the expected capacity at the same levels as before the flight. Their engineers have a vast network of data from all the flights that have already taken place, giving them even more confidence in the thrusters' performance. The work continues in an attempt to close all the points regarding the root cause of the propulsion degradation that occurred. I'll talk about this root cause, but first I want to address a recent point. Regarding the Starliner ability to perform undocking autonomously, many people have been spreading misinformation, claiming that it was said that the Starliner is not capable of undocking on its own, and that it would require a new software. This is not true, and was not what it was mentioned in the press conference. I will explain how this actually works. There is no need to install a new software. The new software designed for CFT mission can handle crew and uncrewed data loads, and Starliner is capable of undocking autonomously. Also, as far as I understood, in both crew and uncrewed configurations, the MCC or ISS crew has the capability to intervene if it's necessary. For crewed missions, the primary responsibility falls on the crew to trigger or manually execute critical maneuvers, like a breakout. However, if the crew does not respond in a timely manner, the MCC or ISS crew can take action to ensure the safety of the spacecraft by triggering an automatic breakout or other necessary maneuvers. For uncrewed missions, since there is no crew on board, the spacecraft is configured to respond autonomously. to any faults. However, MCC or ISS crew can still intervene if the situation requires, providing an additional layer of safety. This layered approach ensures whether the mission is crewed or uncrewed, there are multiple fallback options in place to handle emergencies effectively, with human oversight from MCC or ISS available as a final safeguard. The Starliner spacecraft is designed with the flexibility to operate in both crew and uncrewed configurations. However, the way it handles specific maneuvers like undocking depends on the mission data loads and software configurations that are set before the flight. For crewed missions, the software is configured to prioritize crew involvement in critical operations such as undocking. This is because in situations close to the International Space Station ISS, it is preferred that the crew has the ability to manually trigger or control maneuvers such as a breakout, a rapid maneuver away from the station in case of an emergency. If an anomaly occurs that requires a breakout, the software is designed to alert the crew, allowing them to decide whether to trigger the automatic sequence or pilot the maneuver manually. This ensures that a human judgment is central to the decision-making process in a critical situations. However, if the crew does not respond in a timely manner, the Mission Control Center, MCC, or the ISS crew can intervene and trigger the automatic breakout. This layered approach ensures that there are multiple fallback options to handle emergencies effectively. Now, for uncrewed operations. When Starliner is operating without a crew, as was the case during the Orbital Flight Test 2 OFT2, the software must be adjusted to handle situations that would typically require a human intervention. For uncrewed missions, specific fault responses are configured to automatically trigger maneuvers like a breakout. This is crucial because in the absence of a crew, the spacecraft needs to act autonomously to ensure safety. The process of configuring the software for uncrewed mission involves changing mission data loads and testing change thoroughly in Boeing's integrated hardware-software test facility. This ensures that the spacecraft can handle all necessary operations autonomously without relying on the crew input. Why configuration changes are necessary? The Starliner software is highly adaptable and capable of handling both crew and uncrewed scenarios. However, to switch between these modes, configuration files need to be adjusted. These files define how the software responds to different situations, such as whether to wait for crew input or to proceed automatically. For crewed mission, the default configuration is set up to give the crew the final say in critical maneuvers, which is why the software is currently tailored for crewed undocking. For uncrewed mission, these configurations would need to be altered to ensure that the spacecraft can perform all the necessary actions autonomously. The process of making this change is not just a simple toggle. It involves updating the data loads parameters, conducting rigorous testing, and retraining the flight control team to handle the new setup. This ensures that all systems work seamlessly together and that the spacecraft is fully prepared for the mission, whether it's crewed or uncrewed. It is important to make it clear that the flight control team is training for uncrewed missions. Even though the software changes might seem straightforward, they require thorough testing and validation to ensure that every aspect of the mission can be executed flawlessly. This involves multiple levels of testing, including simulations and validation exercises, to confirm that the new configuration will perform as expected under all possible conditions. This rigorous process is why it can take several weeks to implement and verify a configuration change. The goal is to ensure that the systems are robust and that there are no gaps in safety protocols, especially when dealing with critical operations like undocking from the ISS. In summary, the Starliner is designed to be versatile, capable of both crewed and uncrewed missions. The key difference lies in the software configurations that are set before each mission. For a crewed mission, the software is designed to prioritize human judgment in critical situations. For uncrewed missions, the software is adjusted to handle these situations autonomously. The process of switching between those modes involves carefully planning, testing, and validation to ensure the spacecraft's safety and reliability. Now I'm going to comment on the root cause, but before that, I want to emphasize that the readiness reviews for the agency flight test readiness review are extensive analysis for the approval of the return. The final decisions are not made by voting, but by a common agreement among all the participating engineers. We have engineers with different levels of experience analyze all the data. When I talk about experience, I mean senior engineers with years of practice and others with less time, but all are highly qualified. I strongly believe that the senior engineers are the ones who have the most confidence in the system to ensure a safety return. But in engineering work, everyone has the same value, regardless of the experience. As was mentioned in the conference, sometimes it just takes one voice to raise a doubt to make the entire team rethink and analyze the situation. Now let's talk about the root cause. The main cause identified so far is related to the heating inside of the doghouse. It's important to note that this heating is not sufficient to cause combustion or anything similar. It's a residual heat accumulating inside of the doghouse, which could contribute to the leaks in some helium manifolds and also to the degradation observed in some of the RCS Thrusters. It's worth noting that the doghouse where the RCS Thrusters degradation occurred is not the same one where the helium leak happened. We are talking about two distinct dock houses. Current investigation suggests that this residual heat, generated both by the activation of the RCS Thrusters and possibly by the OMAC Thrusters, is affecting the popped valve in the oxidizer manifold for the RCS Thrusters. This popped valve regulates the entry of the oxidizer into the RCS chamber and has a Teflon seal which is deforming, extruding due to the heat. This deformation of the Teflon reduces the oxidizer injection, compromising the oxidizer and fuel mixture, and consequently causing the propulsion below the expected level. When this happens, the Starliner computer automatically disables the affected RCS thrusters. Additionally, the swelling of the Teflon also caused the cavitation of the oxidizer, leading to a loss of propulsion. However, after recent tests in space with the Starliner, it was observed that the RCS thrusters are operating normally. For some reason, the Teflon contracted, returning to its original state, and the degradation is no longer present. The question that remains unanswered is what is physically causing this cycle of the Teflon swelling and contraction. Engineers are working to identify the root cause and mitigate the problem in future missions. It's important to note that, contrary to the misinformation, these failures were not identified during ground testings in a simple manner. To replicate on Earth the temperature conditions found in space, 2 simulated flights to the ISS and 5 return flights were necessary until the same temperature levels could be reached. Today, engineers are confident in the thrusters' capability, even for a safe return to Earth, but they still want to obtain a physical explanation for this Teflon extrusion and contraction before approving the crew return. However, the primary goal now is to physically understand what is happening with the Teflon to resolve the root cause and ensure safety upcoming missions. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and please always check the official informations from NASA and Boeing for the latest developments. Thank you very much.